There are secrets you don't choose to keep. You find yourself inside without understanding how you ended up there. But once you're in it, it's impossible to get out without hurting yourself or hurting someone you love. My name is Alessandro. I'm 36 years old, and this is the story of how a seemingly innocent holiday turned everything I thought I knew about myself, my wife, and her mother upside down. I don't consider myself a weak man. But when desire creeps into silences, glances, the most banal details, resisting becomes a war that you lose, even when you think you have control. What happened in that villa was not expected. But once that spark was lit, pretending it wasn't burning became impossible. And now, every time I think about it, I ask myself, was I really wrong? Or maybe it was just my instincts asking to be released. Sign up. If you want to find out how dangerous desire can become, it was she who wanted that holiday. A week in his parents' villa, in the countryside. He told me it would be good for us. I didn't think about it too much. I accepted. The villa was magnificent, a turquoise pool that shone among the trees. The silence of nature, discreet luxury. But inside there was also another presence, Claudia, my mother-in-law. 55 years carried with an almost provocative grace. A woman who knew herself, who walked with the confidence of someone who knows the power she has over others. Every time his eyes met mine, I felt a shiver under my skin, a mixture of discomfort and desire. It was a wrong feeling, I knew it. But precisely for this reason, it became difficult to ignore it. Sara, he followed his morning routines. Yoga, meditation, silence. I was often alone. I wandered around the villa like a bored ghost. Claudia, on the other hand, always seemed to know when to appear. He approached with a light step, with that unique way of occupying space without asking permission. He started small, a look, a smile, a double-meaning joke. She wore sheer sarongs that left more to the imagination than to sight. But his malice wasn't in his clothes. It was in the gestures, in the silences, in the confidence with which he treated me. Sometimes she even looked younger than her daughter, but there was also something more, that subtle experience, that aura of a woman who has already seen and achieved so much and isn't afraid to want more. One afternoon, while Sara was out with a friend, Claudia invited me for a dip in the pool. His voice was relaxed, but his body told a whole different story. I tried to remain detached, but the tension grew. Every word was an illusion. Every laugh is an invitation. They were small, silent transgressions, yet they were enough to throw all my certainties into overdrive. Then came the evening of the revelation. During dinner, as the red wine slid into the glasses like blood flowing from a still warm wound, Claudia confessed that she and her husband were separating. It was a punch in the stomach. He said he no longer believed in eternal marriages. Those words resonated in me like a disturbing echo. It was as if someone had shined a light on all my frailties. That night, after Sara went to sleep, I stayed outside smoking. The evening breeze brought with it a strange sense of anticipation, and Claudia appeared, silent. She wore a cream-colored silk robe which billowed lightly against her body. Without saying anything, he stood next to me. We remained there in silence, listening to the crickets singing and the water in the pool. And that moment came. His words, whispered with a cutting sweetness, entered me like a sharp blade. She said she liked me, and my whole body reacted even before my mind. I stood still, shaken, seduced. trapped. In the days that followed, feigning normality was increasingly difficult. Every meeting between us was a tightrope, every look a shock. Complicity became inevitable. One morning, while Sarah was busy on a video call, I found myself with Claudia again by the pool, but this time his sarong was gone. She was wearing a red bikini that looked like it was chosen to torture me. He dived into the water, and the drops reached me. He provoked me, with a light tone and that smile that seemed to know everything. And I fell. Slowly, but I fell. I immersed myself with her, in the hot water and in even hotter thoughts. Our arms barely touched, but that nothing. Then he said something that shook the bottom, that Sarah didn't deserve me, that I was too interesting for her. Those words set me on fire, and at the same time they froze me. I could no longer distinguish the line between pleasure and guilt. In those days I started lying without realizing it. Little lies, half omissions. Every day they moved me one step closer to the point of no return. And then, as if all this wasn't enough, one day, while looking for a simple receipt among Sarah's emails, I stumbled upon something I should never have seen. A message. A secret. Another shot. But that is another story. It wasn't the news I expected to hear, nor the moment I wanted to find out. I was just looking for a receipt among Sarah's emails, something trivial. But I came across a message that changed everything. The sender was a certain Lorenzo. A name I had only heard once, pronounced hastily by Sarah as something unimportant, but the content of the message told another story. Those words, light only in appearance, were a concentration of nostalgia and implications. He said he couldn't wait to see her again, to think about her again. Eli. My stomach closed. My hands were shaking. I sat on the bed, the phone in my fingers as if it weighed a ton. Was it just an illusion? Or was he really hiding something from me? What if I was just one of the many pieces on a chessboard that she was moving without me realizing it? Meanwhile, in my mind, the lies began to tangle together, like toxic roots that climb the walls of the soul. I couldn't pretend like everything was normal anymore. I couldn't even face it, not yet. I had to understand, observe, collect the signals, and the signs didn't take long to arrive. Fleeting smiles, glances that faded too quickly, sudden messages, outings, with friends began to become more and more frequent, and that new coldness, a coldness that had never been part of us. Claudia, on the other hand, seemed to enjoy my confusion, as if he could smell the crack and wanted to widen it with his bare hands. That evening, while Sarah was out, and I suspected she was actually talking to Lorenzo, Claudia entered the kitchen. He had with him 2 glasses and a bottle of Prosecco. An invitation to let go, disguised as a kind gesture. His presence had now taken on a hypnotic power over me. There was something in his movements, in his tone of voice, in his gaze that seemed to pierce you. It wasn't just attraction. It was a dangerous complicity, a whispered alliance made of hidden desires and silences full of promises. It was that evening that he dropped the bomb, a simple phrase, but capable of destroying years of certainties. He told me that Sarah had cheated on me once years ago, just with Lorenzo, when we were still engaged. My blood ran cold. She knew it. He had always known it. And he never told me. Claudia told it as if she were describing the weather outside the window. but I felt something break inside, and I understood that from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding in my chest. I asked why he was revealing this to me now. She simply said that the truth always comes out sooner or later. Then he touched my hand. A light gesture, almost imperceptible, but enough to unleash a wave that passed through my entire body. The next day, I decided to face Sara. I needed to hear his side. When I asked her who Lorenzo was, her face changed. Only for a moment, but that flash was enough. He said he was just a friend, but I knew, and when I made her understand that I knew the truth, she looked down. He confirmed that there had been something, but dismissed it as nothing important. Those words affected me more than any confession. He didn't apologize. She didn't even seem regretful, as if that betrayal were an irrelevant detail among everything else. If something in you has moved listening to this story, then stay. Press sign up and let yourself be tempted again, one story at a time. My heart was broken and my mind was at war. I left the house and went back to the pool. The water, in its apparent calm, seemed the only thing capable of containing the storm inside me. I stared at the reflection of the moon on the water, trying to breathe, but it wasn't long before Claudia appeared again. Like a sweet, irresistible shadow. He approached me, touched my shoulder, and with a whisper dragged me with him. The following morning, everything seemed still. Sara acted as if nothing had happened, as if the night before had been erased with a wipe of the sponge. But I could no longer look at her with the same eyes. Every gesture seemed false to me, every word emptied of meaning. I took a day off. I had to find a meaning, a grip, understanding if what I had experienced was a mistake or a revelation. But Claudia was always there, like a voice in your head, like a temptation that never stops knocking, even when you try to ignore it. Later, when Sarah went out again, with the excuse of another meeting with friends, I followed her with my eyes to the door. As soon as it closed, Claudia appeared, as if she had been waiting for that very moment. He looked at me with an expression somewhere between innocent and perverse, and when he came closer, placing his hand on my shoulder, he spoke words that made my skin freeze. Sometimes, people show who they really are, only when it's too late. And in that moment, I no longer knew if she was talking about Sarah or herself. Shortly after Sarah left, my phone vibrated, an anonymous message. No explanation, just a photo. Sarah and Lorenzo, too close to be just friends, in a bar I didn't know. The detail that transfixed me was the sentence written under the image. Not all lies stay buried forever. Cold anger gripped my stomach. Who wanted to hurt me like that? Was it Lorenzo? Or Claudia? The thought that she might be involved threw me into a disturbing state of confusion. Was it part of a plan, a dark plot where I was just the puppet, or was he really trying to help me? That closeness of his ambiguous phrases, the way he looked at me. He was playing with me, and I couldn't distinguish reality from poison. I didn't answer. I chose to wait for Sara, hoping for a sign, an answer, a gesture that would pull me out of that abyss. But in the meantime, I found myself next to Claudia again, in the kitchen. He made coffee as if everything were normal, as if it were normal for a man to seek comfort in his mother-in-law while his marriage collapsed under the blows of suspicion. He spoke to me in his usual soft voice, with that subtle smile that I never knew how to interpret. Every word seemed to have a double meaning. Each of his glances seemed to dig deep, as if he wanted to read inside me, down to the last line. That evening, Sarah returned late. He told me he had had a setback, but his voice was distant, disconnected from his body. There were 1,000 questions that wanted to come out of my mouth, but I remained silent. Maybe I was afraid of the truth. Or perhaps a part of me no longer wanted to save that life we had built together. After dinner, a new anonymous message. Just one sentence. Water never lies. I was petrified. My heart began to beat faster as my eyes slowly moved towards the pool, illumined by soft lights. I felt that something was about to change. Maybe not at that moment, but soon. Claudia appeared in the doorway, a glass of wine in her hand, the enigmatic smile that I now knew well. She invited me to follow her, and I did it. I couldn't stop, even though every step towards that pool brought me closer to the edge. At the breaking point, she dove in with an almost hypnotic grace. I stood there, hesitant. The air was humid, hot, but nothing was more oppressive than the tangle inside me. Finally, I took off my shirt and got out too. The water was warm, enveloping, but nothing could untie the knot that tightened my chest. Claudia floated as if she were part of the water itself. His every movement was designed to seduce, and he succeeded in his intent. Her voice, soft and provocative, glided through the waves. His words insinuated doubt, desire, temptation. I didn't want to look at her, but I couldn't look away. He was approaching me, slowly, barely touching me, and every touch lit a fire inside me that I no longer knew how to tame. The tension was palpable. The line between right and wrong became increasingly thin. Just then I heard the sound of the gate. Sarah had returned earlier than expected. Claudia froze. Her smile disappeared for a moment, and with a whisper he drifted away, gliding away through the water like a shadow. I got out of the tub, still wet and shaken, just as Sarah entered. His smile was tight, his eyes too attentive. He made a light joke, trying to mask the tension, but I felt he was fighting a war inside. Claudia remained composed, as always. He said something that sounded like justification, but it had the aftertaste of venom. Sarah didn't react. Or maybe he was just wearing his best mask. That night was torment. Neither of us seemed upset. Only I was on edge, a pawn in their game. When Sarah went to sleep, Claudia looked at me one last time before retreating. His look said it all, or maybe nothing. In bed, next to my wife, I couldn't sleep a wink. The thoughts chased each other. The message, Lorenzo, Claudia. It all felt like part of a bigger plan. Suddenly, Sarah's cell phone vibrated. I took it without thinking, driven by anger and frustration. It was a message from Lorenzo. Short but devastating. He said they couldn't hide anymore. The world collapsed on me. It wasn't just a past betrayal, it was something that was happening now, under my eyes. I should have faced it, but something inside me refused. Maybe because I already knew the truth. Perhaps because another truth was emerging, even more disturbing. Claudia was there, ever closer, and I was already one step away from falling. The next morning, Sarah went out early. Without even saying goodbye, he left me alone, immersed in my thoughts and with Claudia. I slept little and badly, and every thought always returned to there, Sarah and Lorenzo. But that wasn't the only thing that tormented me. Claudia was my sweet poison. His every look, every gesture fueled a desire that grew out of control. And that day, without masks anymore, he approached again. Her voice, low and warm, invited me to follow her into the pool. We were alone, and I knew that from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. The pool shone under the scorching midday sun, reflecting beams of light onto the still water. Claudia slowly took off her swimsuit cover-up, revealing a black bikini that seemed tailor-made, as if it were part of her body. The way he walked, the grace with which he entered the water, it was a sight impossible to ignore. He looked at me, and in that instant his gaze seemed to melt away all my resistance. I knew I shouldn't give in. Every fiber in my body was screaming to stop. But something inside me broke, like a dam collapsing under the pressure. I immersed myself in the water, feeling every rational thought dissolve, as if washed away by chlorine and desire. Claudia was there, a few steps away. Her body seemed to shimmer beneath the surface, as if the water itself was caressing her. I approached, driven by a force I could no longer control. When he grabbed my hand and pulled me towards him, it was like crossing an invisible limit, a point of no return. His breath was warm, even in the midst of that cold liquid that enveloped us. His whisper was like a seal. No one would know. But that secret, more than protecting us, chained us. Our bodies sought each other, our mouths joined in a kiss that erased all restraint. It was an explosion of repressed emotions, a fire under the skin. His hands ran over me as if they had known me forever. We continued kissing, devouring each other with the urgency of those who have waited too long. Our bodies moved slowly towards the edge of the pool. The water seemed to become an accomplice, a silent spectator of that sin. Every caress was a whispered promise, every touch a silent betrayal. At that moment, the world had disappeared. There remained only us and our desire. But just when we were about to let ourselves be completely overwhelmed, a noise brought us back to reality. The gate had opened. Sara was back. Claudia pulled away from me with surprising speed and started swimming as if nothing had happened. I stood still, my heart in my mouth. Sarah joined us on the patio with her usual disarming smile. She seemed calm, innocent. But something in his tone, in the way he looked at us, left me with a deep uneasiness. He made a light joke, but his words tasted like poison hidden in honey. His gaze, too fixed, too sure, made me think that perhaps he knew much more than he showed. The next few days were subtle hell. Every moment with Claudia was full of tension. She pretended nothing happened, but she gave me those mischievous looks when Sara wasn't looking, and those were enough to drive me crazy. Sara, on the other hand, seemed colder, almost distant. He watched me as if he was waiting for the right moment to strike, and I no longer knew how to distinguish between reality and paranoia. One night, in bed, Sara dropped a sentence that made my blood run cold. The way he said it, calmly, in that studied tone, made me understand that it wasn't a coincidence. He was testing me. I tried to downplay it, but I knew it wasn't the end of it. Shortly afterwards, Claudia found me in the garden. His attitude was strange, worried. He whispered to me that we had to be more careful, that Sara wasn't stupid. His words confused me even more. Was he trying to warn me, or was he manipulating me? He told me that maybe Sarah already knew everything, and that she was just waiting for the right moment to make me fall. He touched my arm, slowly, with intention. It was clear that, even as the danger grew, she had no intention of stopping. And neither do I. Then came that family dinner. Sara appeared impeccable, hospitable, smiling. He also invited Lorenzo, his old friend, or maybe something more. During the evening, he never stopped throwing little barbs, jokes that seemed innocent but were hiding something. Under the table, Claudia touched my leg, and I felt my blood boil. He asked me to accompany Claudia to the kitchen. As soon as we were alone, she pushed me against the counter and kissed me, desperately. He said he couldn't take it anymore, that he wanted me, and I couldn't stop her. We were too far gone. Back in the room, Sara stared at us with a strange expression. She seemed amused but also ruthless. By the end of the evening, he took control of the situation in a way I hadn't anticipated. He took us into the living room. Claudia followed us. Sara sat down with glacial calm, crossed her legs, and without even looking at me, said that the time had come to talk. He turned to his mother, not me. And there, everything revealed itself. Claudia admitted what I feared. Sara knew from the beginning. Everything had been orchestrated. A test. A trap. He wanted to test me. And I had failed. Sara stood up and told me, with a sharp detachment, that she now had the perfect excuse to show me the door. Claudia said nothing. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and helplessness. Sara, however, explained to me that there had never been anything with Lorenzo, but now, after all this, there would be. I was outside. He gave me a bag with my things. Everything was already ready. He had been getting rid of it for some time. Claudia did nothing to stop her. His eyes said it all. Sorrow. Resignation. I left, with Sara and Lorenzo's laughter piercing my ears. I had lost everything, and I only had myself to blame. But one thing is certain, that swim in the pool, that stolen moment under the sun, would have marked me forever. From that day on, nothing would ever be the same again. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you.